I'm standing here in Berlin alongside Prenzlauer Allee, where every day thousands of cars drive by, spewing literal poison into the air for passersby to breathe. Nothing like the sweet taste of respiratory illness. But if a new citizens initiative passes, streets like these will be given back to the people. My name is Joe Bauer, a German immigrant from Cleveland, Ohio, and in this video, I'm going to see if a car-free Berlin is actually possible. I'll walk you through the 48-page draft law proposal, what it would mean for Berlin, and what other cities have already done to make their cities more pedestrian and cyclist-friendly, all the while lowering air pollution. And by the end of this video, you'll either want to join me hand in hand to skip around the dream of a pedestrianized Berlin, or shove a muffler down my throat. But you gotta catch me first. A Berlin-based initiative called the Verkehrsentscheid, which basically translates to transport decision, has been collecting signatures to put their plan for a car-free Berlin to a vote. Their goal is to help Berlin catch up with other European cities that have long been leading the way in making their cities more pedestrian, transit, and bike-friendly by reducing the number of cars in their city. Paris and the work of former Mayor Hidalgo comes to mind, where they've increased cycling infrastructure and banned cars from driving through the city center and pedestrianized major streets. Just like in the US, opponents to reducing car access tend to paint these initiatives as a war on cars, stripping law-abiding citizens of their precious, precious cars. Honestly, the harsh and hyperbolic reaction isn't entirely unlike in the US whenever someone suggests maybe, I don't know, a thorough background check before letting someone pick up a gun wouldn't be a terrible idea. So I read the 48-page draft law to better understand what they're actually proposing. Here we go. After a 4-year transition period, most streets within the S-Bahn ring, a train that wraps around the city, and I actually ran around it myself, and it clocks out to be just about a marathon. I made a video about it. It's really interesting. Talks about the history of the S-Bahn ring, how it ties to the history of Berlin. So, go check that out after this one. These streets will become what they're calling auto-reduced zones. So this isn't actually a literal ban on cars. It's a permit system which already exists in other cities. Cars are still allowed, but you just need a reason to drive that's more compelling than, I just felt like it. For example, maybe your mobility is impaired. You'd be able to get a permanent permit to drive. Then there are the emergency services like police, ambulance, and fire trucks. They're good to go under this law. Garbage collection, mail delivery, tradespeople hauling tools or materials, and taxis too could use the auto-reduced streets. Now here's how it works for everyone else. Every Berlin resident gets 12 24-hour passes per year. And yes, that includes children. So, for example, a family of 4 could use their car 48 days a year. After 10 years, this drops to 6 passes per person. The system uses a QR code you print online and stick onto your windshield. No bureaucracy, no waiting for approval, just a simple digital permit for things like moving house, airport runs, or weekend trips. Bundesstraßen, which are like federal highways in the US or A roads in the UK, are completely exempt from this. They'll stay open to vehicular traffic. And enforcement for this law will be taken as seriously as Germany tends to take everything else. Fines for violators can go up to 100,000 euros, and illegal cars will get towed at the owner's expense. Repeat offenders will lose their permits entirely. At that point, I would say it's easier to just ditch the car, but I might be a little biased here. What Verkehrsentscheid wants to do in Berlin is nothing new in Europe. In November 2024, Paris launched Zone à Trafic Limité, and it covers the first 4 arrondissements, the historic core of the city. The rules are similar to Berlin's proposal. You can't just drive through the zone anymore, but you can still drive to a destination within the zone. Residents, workers, deliveries, taxis, emergency vehicles, all allowed. Hotels can register your license plate if you're staying there. Everyone else needs a reason to be there with a car. The city estimates that this affects somewhere between 350,000 and 500,000 vehicles that were just cutting through the city center every day. Italy has been doing this for decades. Rome, Florence, Milan, they all have what they call ZTL zones, Zona a Traffico Limitato. These are mostly designed to protect historic city centers from traffic damage. In Rome, the system is admittedly a bit complex with different zones active at different times, some only at night, some tied to emission standards. Florence runs a pretty tight ship with cameras at every entrance. Milan has what's called Area C, which charges a fee to enter the city center by car on weekdays. The Italian version is stricter than what Berlin is proposing. Tourists basically can't get permits. Hotels can register your plate, but if you're just visiting and drive into a ZTL without permission, you're getting fined. And those fines are automatic, camera enforced, and they follow you home. The key difference with Berlin's proposal is the scale and the permit system. Paris and Italian cities are mostly trying to stop through traffic and protect historic cores. Berlin is trying to fundamentally reshape how the entire city feels and moves. There's a significant environmental case to be made here too. The Verkehrsentscheid folks argue that the transport sector is failing to meet Germany's climate targets by a large margin. Under the Paris Agreement, Germany committed to limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. To hit that target, the transport sector needs to cut emissions by 40 to 42% by 2030. Right now, they're on track to miss that goal by about 33 million tons of CO2, and cars account for 61% of transport emissions. To be clear, the proposal explicitly rejects the idea that just switching over to electric vehicles solves the problem. Germany can't produce enough renewable energy by 2035 to power a full electric fleet. The infrastructure simply isn't there, and it won't be built in time. Besides, electric vehicles don't eliminate particle pollution. That is, the tiny particles that get into your lungs and cause respiratory disease. Modern exhaust filters have gotten so good that tires now produce hundreds to thousands of times more particles than tailpipes. And electric cars are just as heavy, sometimes even heavier, which means they create just as much tire pollution, if not more. Then there's the air quality. Berlin has been violating EU limits for nitrogen dioxide for years. A court ordered the city to fix it by 2020. Guess what? They didn't. Over 73 stations measuring the air quality are still exceeding legal limits. Berlin is classified as one of 14 German intensive cities where nitrogen dioxide levels are dangerously high. That's more than Shada. Not to mention, this past winter saw Berlin blow right past its annual EU limit for bad air days, 24 times in the first 6 weeks of 2026. You're only supposed to get 18 for the entire year. Noise is another piece of the equation. 340,000 Berliners are exposed to harmful noise levels above 55 decibels at night. That's roughly 10% of the city's population, and 75% of residents have reported feeling disturbed by traffic noise. Now, I know that sounds a little bit, wah, it's loud outside, but the law cites studies linking traffic noise to cardiovascular disease, sleep disorders, and psychological illness. People in lower income neighborhoods are disproportionately affected by this because they're more likely to live on loud, polluted streets. Now that's something the US can definitely relate to, where highways literally plowed right on through low-income neighborhoods so white flight could get to their suburbs faster. And then there's the nature argument, which is less obvious but matters for climate adaptation. Sealed roads prevent the creation of green corridors the city needs for biodiversity. More importantly, Berlin needs green infrastructure to deal with rising temperatures and extreme weather, which is something I've noticed in my 7 years of living in Berlin. Every additional percentage point of payment in the city raises local temperatures by 0.03 degrees Celsius. The proposal argues that the city needs to reclaim street space, not just for people, but for trees, rain gardens, and heat mitigation. The draft law also includes a cost estimate. Cars currently impose 750 million euros in annual environmental damage, including climate costs, air pollution, noise, and ecosystem destruction. If this initiative gets implemented, that drops to 325 million euros with a total savings of 425 million euros per year, just from reducing environmental harm. Not to mention, that's nearly 100 times the annual administrative cost of running the permit system. Who knew math could help advocate for healthier cities? The legal argument here is interesting. Right now, anyone can drive everywhere unless it's explicitly prohibited. This initiative flips that on its head. Under the new system, driving becomes what they call special use requiring permission, rather than, just a general right. Berlin's Constitutional Court actually ruled this legally permissible back in June 2025. The draft law highlights the imbalance that Berliners have been living under. Cars take up 58% of Berlin's street space, including parking, but only 26% of trips are done by car. The number of trips is presumably even fewer within the Ringbahn, where only 1 out of every 5 Berliners own a car. And the trend is that more Berliners are giving up their car. About a year ago, a report noted that there were roughly 11,000 fewer cars in Berlin compared with the year before. Verkehrsentscheid are arguing that that's fundamentally unfair. And it's hard not to agree, especially when you're looking at an area where pedestrians and cyclists far outnumber cars. I mean, why should I, someone who chooses not to drive or own a car, have to breathe your poison because you just felt like going on a little joyride? I often hear people justify it as just one of the trade-offs of living in the city. But it's only a trade-off because we've normalized the right of cars to be almost everywhere. Seriously, next time you go outside, just notice how much space cars take up, even in a nominally pedestrian-friendly city like Berlin. Whether driving by or parked on the side of the street, you'll see a car almost everywhere you look. Look, if you want to live in the countryside or in a more car-oriented area, that's your call. But your decision to live far from the city or to just have a car for your own perceived convenience does not outweigh my right and the right of the majority of Berliners or people around the world who don't drive to have clean air to breathe. I'm sure some people watching this will think of all kinds of reasons this can't be done. I swear there's no greater group of unimaginative defeatists than car owners. More often than not, whenever someone suggests pedestrianizing an area or limiting car use, I hear the same refrain over and over again. It'll never happen here. Except it can. We've seen time and time again places redevelop streets to limit or completely remove cars for the benefit of the people actually living there. One of the most famous examples takes us to Denmark. Copenhagen converted a street, Struget, in 1962 as an experiment, and the naysayers used the same talking points I've heard from throughout the US to Europe. They said it would kill businesses and argued that Danes just wouldn't adapt. Surprise, surprise, the opposite happened, and it's now one of Europe's longest pedestrianized streets at just over a kilometer. Barcelona experimented with superblocks, or as that one guy who studied abroad for a semester in Barcelona would call them, Barcelona Superblocks. Superblocks limited cars to driving at a walking speed of 10 kilometers an hour. They saw a whopping 92% reduction in vehicle use within these blocks with no increase in traffic on surrounding streets, improving the air quality and noise for residents. And then there's Amsterdam, a car-dominated city in the 1950s and 60s, but then a surge in child traffic deaths sparked protests in the early 1970s that led to a complete refashioning of the city into one of the most bike-friendly places in the entire world. Even in the United States of asphalt, where cars are practically an appendage, New York City introduced congestion pricing. Within the year it was implemented, they already saw a marked drop in traffic, pollution, crashes, and noise complaints from excessive honking. So yes, it can happen. The only question in my mind is whether people, particularly political leadership, will continue to value personal convenience over community health. Berlin is an incredible city. I love it here. I've lived here longer than anywhere else in my adult life. Hell, I became a German citizen here. Daddy das, motherfuckers! One of the things I love most about this city is that anyone is welcome here. And if you don't know who you are, you can figure it out along the way. Berlin clubs and social life are kind of like the result of a Mad Lib. Let's see here, sexually fluid cosplaying dog lovers. Yeah, sure, there's a club for that. And I want Berlin to continue to be a place where everyone can be who they're meant to be. But in order for that to happen, we have to be able to breathe. And ideally without increasing our risk for respiratory diseases just by existing in the city. Berlin can absolutely be a city that prioritizes people over cars. That's a city I'll happily continue to live in, and a future I'm definitely signing on to. By the time this video goes out, I'll be in the midst of a slow train trip from Berlin through Italy before heading back to the US, where I'll work on a video to show you how I actually lived like a car-free European in Cleveland, Ohio, before traveling west to check out some national parks and run another ultra marathon. So stay tuned for those videos, and you can follow me at BauerJoe on Instagram for little snippets along the way. Now, if you want to see a place that does prioritize cars over people, you can watch this video to see where I grew up and how it pushed me to want to live car-free in both the US and Europe. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you next week.